Rain splattered against the glass windows of the small-town diner, drumming a steady rhythm as customers huddled over coffee and
what are you thinking for
conversation.
dinner tonight?
The door swung open with a gust of cold wind, and in stepped a man in a worn grey coat. He looked tired, slightly lost. His name was Mr. Grant. Nobody knew that under that faded coat was a man worth billions, but today he looked like just another stranger seeking warmth. He sat at the corner booth, glancing at the menu as the waitress approached. "Coffee? Black. And the steak special, please," he said in a low, even tone. His voice carried authority, but his eyes seemed distracted. As the waitress left, his phone buzzed. A message flashed across the screen. Board meeting delayed. Charity proposal still pending. He sighed. The word charity left a bitter taste in his mouth. His company donated millions each year, yet he couldn't remember the last time he'd personally helped anyone. Across the diner, a small girl stood near the counter, clutching a box of cookies almost as big as her arms. She was maybe 8, her shoes soaked from the rain. She smiled shyly at each customer, her voice barely audible. "Excuse me, would you like to buy cookies for our school shelter fund?" Most waved her away. Some didn't even look up, but she didn't give up. Mr. Grant noticed her persistence. Something about the child reminded him of a time long buried. The hunger, the struggle before his first big deal changed everything. He reached for his wallet when the waitress returned with his meal. "That'll be $18.45, she said, tapping on the register. He slid his black card across the table casually. She swiped it once, frowned, then again. The register beeped sharply. It says declined." Mr. Grant blinked. "That can't be right. Try again." She did. Twice more, the same beep, the same red message. The man at the next booth chuckled. "Guess even the rich hit hard times." Heat rose to Mr. Grant's face. He wasn't used to being the one people pitied. He reached into his pockets. Nothing. He'd switched wallets that morning and left his backup card in his car. His phone battery blinked red. Almost dead. He looked around. Every pair of eyes in the diner was on him now. "Sir, maybe you can come back later," the waitress said, tone clipped but not unkind. Before he could answer, a soft voice cut through the awkward silence. "You can have my money, mister." Heads turned. The little cookie girl stood there, holding out her small coin purse. Inside were mostly nickels and quarters, maybe $4. "You look hungry," she added, her voice trembling a little. "You can pay me back someday if you want." The room went still. Mr. Grant stared at her, speechless. He could buy this diner 100 times over, yet right now he felt smaller than ever. "You don't have to do that," he managed. "I want to," she said, nodding firmly. "My mom says if you see someone in trouble, you help, even if you don't have much." A few customers smiled. One woman whispered, "Bless her heart." The waitress hesitated, then quietly placed the plate back on the table. "It's okay, sir. You can eat. The little lady's covered it." Mr. Grant's throat tightened. He lowered himself into the booth slowly as the girl handed over her coins. She then placed one cookie from her box on the edge of his plate. "This one's free. It's chocolate chip, my favorite. What's your name?" he asked softly. "Sophie," she said with a grin that seemed to brighten the whole diner. "Sophie? Thank you." He meant it more than he'd meant anything in years. As he ate, she sat across from him, munching on a cookie of her own. "You know," she said between bites, "I'm selling these to raise money for our new shelter. Our old one leaks when it rains. My mom says one day we'll have a real roof." He smiled faintly. "You and your mom live there?" She nodded. "It's not bad. The people are nice, but it gets cold sometimes." Mr. Grant felt a sting in his chest. "You're very brave," he said quietly. "It's not brave," she replied simply. "It's just life, but it'll get better. Mom says hope makes hard days softer." He looked out the window at the pouring rain. Hope. He couldn't remember the last time he'd felt it. When his meal was done, he stood and gently handed her back the uneaten half of his steak wrapped in napkin. "For you," he said. "Share it with your mom." Her eyes widened. "Really?" He smiled. "Really? And keep your coins. I'll find a way to pay you back, I promise." She giggled, shaking her head. "It's okay, mister. Just do something nice for someone else." He walked out of the diner into the rain, his chest tight and his heart strangely full. Behind him, Sophie waved through the fogged window. As his car disappeared down the street, the waitress muttered to herself, That little girl's got more heart than all of us combined. What nobody knew was that Mr. Grant wasn't heading home. He was heading back to his office, and a decision that would change Sophie's life forever. The city lights shimmered in the puddles as Mr. Grant drove through the rain, headlights cutting through the mist. He gripped the steering wheel tighter than usual. His mind replayed Sophie's words again and again. Do something nice for someone else. Simple words, but they struck deeper than any boardroom argument or business speech ever had. By the time he reached his penthouse, he wasn't thinking about profits, stocks, or his next acquisition. He was thinking about a little girl with wet shoes and a heart bigger than his entire company. He sank into his leather chair, opened his laptop, and began typing. The next morning, his assistant nearly dropped her coffee when she saw the new email order. Reallocate $2 million to the Hope Shelter Fund. Anonymous donation. Sir, are you sure? She asked, wide-eyed. Yes, he said without looking up. Make it happen quietly. No press, no announcements. He spent the rest of the week restless, checking the local news more than his own company's stock price. Each night he thought about Sophie, wondering if she still stood in the rain selling cookies, wondering if her mom knew what kind of daughter she was raising. Then one morning, as the sun broke through the clouds for the first time in days, Mr. Grant's car pulled up near a construction site. A banner stretched across the fence, future home of the New Hope Shelter, funded by a kind stranger. He stepped out slowly, his breath catching in his throat. Workers were already moving supplies. Children ran around laughing, and in the middle of it all was Sophie, her hair tied in a messy ponytail, her face lit up with joy. She was helping paint a cardboard sign with the words, "Thank you, whoever you are." He smiled, staying back where she couldn't see him. Watching her was enough. He turned to leave, but a small voice called out, "Hey, you're the man from the diner." He froze. She had spotted him. Sophie came running, her shoes kicking up dust. "Hi!" she said breathlessly. "You came to see our new shelter. Isn't it amazing? Some super nice person gave us all the money." He smiled. "I heard. That's wonderful, Sophie." She squinted up at him. "You look happy. Did you find a job?" He chuckled. "Something like that. Good," she said, satisfied. "Mom says when people help others, good things come back around. Maybe that's what happened to you." He crouched down, meeting her eyes. Maybe it did. She dug into her pocket and pulled out a slightly crumpled cookie. "Here, last one, for luck." He took it carefully as though it were made of gold. "I think I'll keep this one forever." That evening, as the sun dipped low, he returned to his office and called an emergency board meeting. His executives gathered, confused by the sudden summons. "Gentlemen," Mr. Grant said, standing at the head of the table, "I've spent years building this company, but I realized something last week. It's not what we build that matters. It's who we build it for." They exchanged uncertain glances, he continued, voice steady. "From this day forward, 10% of our profits will go into a new initiative, Project Sophie. We'll fund shelters, schools, and small charities that keep hope alive." A silence fell over the room. Then slow applause began. For the first time in a long while, he felt something inside him lift. Purpose, pure and unpolished. Days turned into weeks. The new shelter opened with laughter and balloons. Sophie stood proudly beside her mother, cutting the ribbon. Her eyes sparkled as she looked at the crowd. A reporter asked, "What do you want to say to the person who made this happen?" She smiled shyly at the camera. "Thank you for believing in people like us. I don't know who you are, but I hope you're smiling right now." Miles away in his office, Mr. Grant watched the broadcast on his laptop, his lips curved into a faint smile. "I am," he whispered. He reached into his drawer and took out that last cookie, still perfectly wrapped. On the napkin beneath it, he wrote a short note. "To Sophie, the richest person I've ever met." He sealed it in an envelope and sent it to the shelter, unsigned. A week later, Sophie opened the envelope. She gasped softly and showed her mom the note. "It's from the nice man," she said, grinning from ear to ear. "See? I told you he'd do something good." Her mom hugged her tightly. "You did more than that, sweetheart. You changed someone's heart." That night, Sophie placed the note by her bedside and whispered a quiet prayer of thanks. She didn't know the man's name. She didn't need to. She believed kindness always found its way back, and she was right. Months later, a large framed photo appeared on the wall inside the new shelter. Sophie smiling with her cookie box, and below it, a bronze plaque that read, "Inspired by Sophie's unimaginable kindness." Outside, Mr. Grant stood beneath the sign in the quiet evening light, unseen by the crowd inside. For a long moment, he simply watched the glow through the windows, the laughter spilling into the night. Then he turned, slipped his hands into his coat pockets, and walked away with a peaceful smile. For once, the billionaire didn't feel rich because of his money. He felt rich because of a little girl who had taught him what it truly meant to give. And somewhere in the city, as the stars broke through the clouds, a faint scent of chocolate chip cookies lingered in the air, a gentle reminder that even the smallest act of kindness can change the world forever.